to evoke those names, not only in the classrooms, but as a part of our everyday practice. We live in a country that does not value historical tradition. And as I've said a million times, not only does this country not value history, but it inflicts a kind of historical amnesia on all of us. And that is sometimes historical amnesia with respect to events and people of decades ago, but sometimes just a couple of years ago. We kind of have the practice of assuming that things that are no longer in the news have been cast into the garbage bin of history, and we can forget about it. And this is why I tried to ask you to remember what it was like to experience the election of Barack Obama, because we need to maintain that memory of those collective emotions. That was an amazing time. When Obama was inaugurated, apparently there was not one single crime committed in Washington, D.C. That whole day. Now that's amazing. Because that moment was also about a promise. And I think we try to maintain or create memories of these moments and people like June and Audrey and Barbara who died before their time. They should really be with us today. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way in which Black women are compelled to suffer, especially in institutions like this. Let's maintain those memories. Let's start on the right.
Hi. It's interesting that you're talking about the amnesia with the celebration of the new monument. There's been no mention after everybody's talked about it. Nobody's mentioned Ella Baker once, even though she was the one who set up the 65 satellites and so on. Could you speak to that? Or even the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, nobody mentions her ever.
Well, I think we have to beware of the extent to which the heroic individual is responsible for the eradication of history. And of course, we should all remember Dr. King. He's so important in our history. But everybody knows that. I mean, there's not probably a single person in this country who does not know the name of Dr. Martin Luther King, because there are streets named after him everywhere. Right? There are schools. Everything is named King. And so, while we revere him, that monumentalization has the effect of eradicating, erasing the histories that are responsible for whatever victories we may have won against racism. And Ella Baker, of course, they're the names that we can name. Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer. Obama never could have achieved what he achieved had not Fannie Lou Hamer, a woman who was illiterate and who was a timekeeper on a cotton plantation. And she went to Washington and challenged the exclusion of Black people from the Democratic Party as the head of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. So yes, we have to remember that. We have to remember Joanne Robinson, who she and the women who worked with her are the ones who actually organized the Montgomery bus boycott. But also, even more important, is to figure out how to remember those whose names we remember. Because those are the ones who are responsible for the change. Dr. King could have been, the eloquent orator and leader that he was, but if people weren't willing to join together and create these radical communities of struggle. And in relation to King, Dr. King, I think about the black domestic workers in Montgomery, Alabama, who nobody ever talks about. I mean, there was one film that, what was that called? The Long Walk Home or something like that? And that's about the only evocation of the role of black domestic workers in the successful Montgomery bus boycott. Because they were the ones who had to ride the bus. They had to take the bus into the white neighborhoods to do, the cleaning and the cooking and the washing and the ironing. And they were the ones who said no. They were the ones who had a collective vision of a different future. And we aren't given the tools with which to understand the role that ordinary people play in these monumental changes. So you can see it's a big issue with me. So sorry to take it so long to answer your question.